Our fans to understand that playing 82 games in the 80s and 90s is not the same as playing 82 games in the 2020s.
LeBron passes up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in points, and he will this year. Yep. Will that make him the greatest player ever?
LeBron James recently spoke on a podcast about how today's game is different, a point that sounds reasonable at first glance. However, many from the old school generation did not interpret it that way at all. To them, it felt less like analysis and more like a subtle comparison that could be seen as downplaying the challenges of earlier eras. Shaquille O'Neal, a three-time champion who battled alongside Kobe Bryant, was reportedly one of the most vocal in that reaction. According to reports, tensions rose after the game between the Los Angeles Lakers and the New York Knicks, where an intense moment in the tunnel brought that disagreement into the spotlight. This was not a casual exchange or a friendly conversation. It was something more serious, driven by deeper feelings about respect, legacy, and how different eras of basketball are being compared. At the heart of it all is a bigger question. Was LeBron actually taking a shot at the era of Michael Jordan, or is Shaq overreacting to comments that were taken out of context? The answer depends heavily on how those words are interpreted. For some, LeBron was simply explaining how the modern game has evolved. For others, especially those who lived through a more physical and
at some point, like you said, it'd be a conversation that'd be brought up again, and hopefully we can kind of figure it out and get to a better place about it, because the game is different. Like I want people to understand, and our fans to understand, that playing 82 games in the 80s and 90s is not the same as playing 82 games in the 2020s. It's just not. The way we play, the level of pace, the level of the speed that we're playing at, it's a different game now. It's a totally different game. And, it's a lot of soft tissue injuries that's happened now because of it. I hope we can get a handle on that as well, because that's big.
Here's how everything really started. The Los Angeles Lakers took a 112-100 loss to the New York Knicks. On the surface, it was nothing unusual, just another regular season game that would normally be forgotten within a day. But this particular night carried a lot more tension beneath the surface than the scoreboard suggested. Even before the game fully settled, LeBron James was already trending because of comments he made on a podcast. Those remarks quickly started circulating, especially in circles within the basketball world where people have long memories and take certain narratives seriously. In those spaces, words are not easily brushed aside, especially when they touch on topics like toughness, legacy, and how different eras of the game compare.
I think when I first came into the league, Reese, like some of the biggest concerns of injuries was like, a high ankle sprain. You was afraid to step on somebody's ankle because there was 4 or 5 guys sitting in the paint. So, guys with athleticism, myself, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, to name a couple guys, sometimes you're afraid to take off into the lane because there was 4 or 5 guys sitting in the paint. And if you land on somebody's ankle, you get a high ankle sprain, you out 4 to 6 weeks. Now that's not really much of you don't really see that as much now because the game is so spread open, it's so much pace. But now you see the new high ankle sprain is the calf.
Right.
Hopefully we can get a handle on that from a medical standpoint. But it's just the game. I just want the fans to understand that the game is a little different. And, as NBA players, we definitely want to be.
The clip that really set everything off featured LeBron James explaining how the game has evolved over time. He pointed out that calf injuries today carry a similar level of concern to what high ankle sprains once did, largely because of how fast-paced and spaced out the modern game has become. His explanation focused on performance and sports science, emphasizing that players now sprint more, move more frequently, and place different types of stress on their bodies compared to previous eras. On the surface, it came across as a straightforward, analytical breakdown, something you might expect to hear from a trainer or sports scientist studying how basketball has physically changed. It was less about comparison in a competitive sense, and more about highlighting how the demands on players have shifted with the evolution of the game.
Hold on. You said LeBron James the greatest player ever?
Ever.
What about Michael and Kobe? So you just gonna pass Kobe up like that?
I'm gonna pass Kobe up. I'm gonna look at Michael. I'm gonna look at the. I'm gonna look at.
I knew it. Patron America.
Yo.
Patron America.
Kobe Bryant couldn't fill, or Michael Jordan fill LeBron's shoes. The impact that he's had with different teammates, different organizations.
Would you be mad at me if I just walked up?
That, however, is not how Shaquille O'Neal or many players from the older generation interpreted it. To them, LeBron James's comments sounded like more than just analysis. They felt like a subtle redefinition of toughness, almost suggesting that today's game demands more than the one they endured. For players who competed in an era where hand-checking was standard, elbows in the paint were routine, and physical punishment was simply part of the job, that idea does not sit lightly. In their eyes, it feels like the grind they went through is being quietly diminished. So when LeBron walked through the tunnel after the loss, Shaq was already there waiting. This was not a casual greeting or a quick exchange. Witnesses described Shaq stepping directly into his path, making a clear and deliberate statement before even speaking. The image alone said everything. A 7-foot, 300-pound presence standing firm in a narrow tunnel, stopping someone in their tracks. That is not accidental. That is someone who has something to say and intends to say it on his own terms, right then and there. What was actually said in that moment is still unclear, with different accounts offering bits and pieces but no complete picture. Still, the intensity of that encounter brought Shaq's long-standing argument back into focus, an argument that goes far beyond one podcast or one game. In Shaq's view, greatness in basketball used to carry a different kind of weight. It was not just about accumulating stats or winning championships, it was about psychological dominance, about imposing fear. Players like Michael Jordan did not just defeat opponents, they made them believe they were going to lose before the game even began. That pressure carried through every possession and lingered long after the final buzzer. Kobe Bryant brought that same relentless energy, with an intensity that never allowed opponents a moment of comfort. Their presence alone could shift the mental state of a game. This is where Shaq draws a clear line. He believes that while LeBron's achievements, numbers, and physical dominance are undeniable, they do not carry that same fear factor. You rarely hear stories of players losing sleep before facing him or feeling mentally broken in the same way opponents often did against Jordan. In Shaq's eyes, that psychological edge, the ability to truly intimidate and overwhelm opponents, is what separates great players from those who define entire eras.
Playing? I didn't know. No, I just think that, we're playing different eras. He's an unbelievable player. Yeah, he's one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world. I know it's a natural tendency to compare eras to eras, and it's going to continue to happen. I'm a fan of his. I love watching him play, but it's as you can see, our league is starting to expand on very talented players, and I think he's made his mark. He will continue to do so over a period of time, but when you start the comparisons, I think it is what it is.
For Shaquille O'Neal, the difference between eras is not a small detail. It is everything. One of the biggest points he leans on is the finals record. Michael Jordan went 6 for 6 in the finals, winning 6 championships and 6 finals MVPs without a single loss on that stage. That perfect record carries serious weight, especially when the pressure is at its highest. While LeBron James has reached the finals more times than almost anyone, he has also lost on that stage, and in Shaq's view, those losses matter. To him, the finals is where greatness is fully tested, when there is nowhere to hide. At the same time, LeBron's case is just as strong in a different way. His longevity is unmatched. He has stayed elite for over 2 decades across multiple teams, systems, and eras of basketball. That kind of sustained excellence is something the league has never really seen before. While Jordan's peak was dominant, his career did not stretch the same way. LeBron's ability to produce at a high level for so long has led to historic numbers that no one else has reached. However, Shaq pushes back on that argument sharply. In his eyes, accumulating stats over time is not the same as dominating an era. He draws a clear line between peak dominance and long-term consistency, arguing that they represent 2 completely different types of greatness. For him, fear, control, and authority over the league at your peak carry more weight than longevity alone. This debate becomes even more layered when looking at LeBron's current situation with the Los Angeles Lakers. At this stage in his career, he has naturally shifted into more of a veteran role. He is still impactful, still highly intelligent on the court, but no longer the sole engine of the team like he once was. Critics have noticed that shift, especially when comparing it to Shaq's own championship years, where there was no question about who led the team during their dominant run. Then, there is the conversation around the jersey patches LeBron has worn to celebrate his milestones. No legends before him, whether Jordan, Kareem, or others, ever displayed achievements like that during games. Those players reached milestones, received recognition, and moved forward without turning their uniforms into a showcase of accomplishments. For Shaq and others from that era, this feels like a form of self-promotion that clashes with the traditional culture of the game. But this discussion is bigger than just one player. It reflects how the NBA itself has evolved. Today's league blends basketball with branding, social media presence, and entertainment value in ways that did not exist before. Players build global identities that extend far beyond the court. While that growth benefits the business of the sport, it also blurs the definition of greatness for some observers. The tunnel moment between Shaq and LeBron brought all of this into the open. What was once a debate on shows and social media suddenly became personal and direct. Two legends, face to face, representing different eras and philosophies of the game. And once that kind of moment happens, it does not simply disappear. It shapes how the era is remembered. Now, the conversation has grown far beyond that single encounter. Former players, analysts, and fans have taken sides. Some support Shaq's defense of old-school values like toughness and dominance. Others argue that LeBron represents evolution, adaptability, and a new standard of greatness.